The reason why, the strength of prose, is that you can take the reader into the character, that you can take the reader in omniscient, multiple characters, in deep, you take it into one character. It doesn't really matter. The point is you can go into the character, you can give their motivations, you can give their emotions, you can drive that home.
Releasing your inner dragon.
So, what do you do when you get a really, really solid chapter and the author's like, critique me, please? It's either going to be a short conversation or a long one.
Well, I mean, first of all, everything can be critiqued. Everything can be improved. Everything can be whatever. It really comes down to, like, there's a couple things. When I'm in a critique group, and I'm pretty sure you do the same thing, you know, when I'm critiquing somebody, I try to see where they're at as a writer, what level they're at as a writer. And then I pick the lowest hanging fruit. If the lowest hanging fruit is you can't punctuate, then I'm not going to talk to you about thematic threading through the scene. Like, you're nowhere near ready to understand that. It'll just go over your head. So that's really the thing. And I think the problem is that because we deal with a lot of writers that are still kind of in the beginning of their journey, so they're still learning paragraph structure and sentence structure and information flow and everything like that. When we do hit somebody that's bigger or, you know, more solid as a writer, it's a little intimidating to us because we're like, oh crap, right, I need to go up here.
And I think the other thing is when we, you know, we either get people who are like at the punctuation level or people who are like at the filtering level, and we need to talk about filtering and
Show don't
characterization
tell,
and
or
POV
yeah,
and so on. But then occasionally we do get very, very different pieces. So we are doing another live edit today. And as you can tell by the fact that we are both speaking about it, we actually have read this one beforehand.
a piece of it anyway.
A piece of it. And it was impressive. So without further ado, I am going to share my screen as I normally do. And if you are watching on if you're just listening to us, bear in mind that if you join us on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, you can watch and read along.
Actually, before we start,
Yeah,
by the time this airs, we will be over 1,000 subscribers.
probably, yes.
Oh, there's no problem. I mean,
Yeah, we're very close.
we
We're
may
like,
be there before we finish recording.
yeah.
Please, and we haven't done this in a long time, but if you are getting value out of what we're doing here, please help us out. We don't ask for much. Like and subscribe to the channel. I know every YouTuber says this, every one of them, and I get, and that's why we kind of have stopped even really doing it. But the way you can help us out is to spread the word. You know, actually say to your writers groups, to your writer friends, if you're in a Facebook writers group, whatever, hey, I don't know if you guys have listened to the Releasing Your Inner Dragon podcast, but they really do cover some stuff that helps me out, you know, if that's the truth. And so hopefully it is, if you keep coming back and actually listening to us ramble on for an hour. But seriously, it really, really, really makes a huge difference. I mean, we've been doing this 4 years, and we're just, when you hit 1,000 subscribers is when you can start actually being monetized. So not that we're in it to make a lot of money, but we spend money doing this. Yeah. So it'd be nice if we just covered our costs and, you know, broke even. So if you guys are getting something out of this, it's been a while since we've implored you to help us out, but you know, throw a few alms in the cup, in the little tin cup of ours, please.
Also comments are great for the algorithm, just FYI.
Yep.
So I'm going to start by just reading the first couple of paragraphs and then we can discuss it. The opening valve creaked behind Ven, and she squeezed her shoulder blades in preparation. A choir of screeches announced the volley of water needles that hit her naked body. She pressed her hands against the pale green tiles and buried her fingertips in the grooves. The chains tightened around her wrists. The water jet rammed her back as if it was solid. Ven was painfully familiar with the feeling. A 2-inch fire hose was the primary tool of trade down here in the showers of the Institute. Yet it was no punishment. Punitive showers, which the staff called purges, were done with a 3-inch hose, an audience, and no chains. Chains made sure the patient would remain standing, preventing her inevitable stumble and fall. And once the patient fell, her throat was soon drowning in an unstoppable freezing cascade, and only the mercy of the staff could deliver her from death. No, this was not a purge Ven was going through. It was a cleansing. While a purge was as close as it could get to the ultimate punishment, a cleansing was the hope of the possibility of the ultimate reward. Yeah, I'm going to stop there so we can talk about these couple of paragraphs. So I'll start with, I really enjoyed the opening. The opening was visceral. It was immediate. It put me in a physical location. It gave me touch on multiple branches of sensation. That was fantastic. I also really appreciated the clarification that this is a punishment versus this is a cleansing, and there's this promise here in the fourth paragraph that we're looking for an ultimate reward.
Right. Just to take a step back, someone from the Peanut Gallery mentioned this. They said, I've heard this story before. Is this new? We actually used this before. What was it?
No, we haven't used it. We read it in the thought of using it, and then we ended up not having time.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right. For those that don't know, you can actually watch us live record these podcasts. You do need to go to the writer's room, writersroom.us, and just join the free area. You can also join as a member and work with us. But if you just join the free area, one of the benefits you get from just being a free member of the writer's room is every Thursday, thought I muted that, sorry. Every Thursday morning Pacific time, evening Finland time, we record live. And so you can be a part of the Peanut Gallery and make comments and everything like that. So yeah, that is true. There was an episode that we were doing that we were thinking about using this during the episode as an example for something. So we read it before we started the podcast, but once we got into the podcast, we ran out of time. That's what it was. So to let you know, that's
and the Peanut Gallery has just told me it's 5:30 GMT. So 5:30 p.m. So 17:30 if you're European. Anyway, so back to this passage. Drake, what are your thoughts on this opening?
So one of the things that I love about this, in last month's workshop in the writer's room, I ran an exercise and I pushed them to understand there's 4 things that I want to do at the opening of every one of my scenes. And this is every scene, no matter where it's at in the book. But obviously the first scene, the opening scene, that first chapter, it's vitally important. But in every scene, you want to do 4 things because your reader needs this. The quicker you do this, the more enjoyment the reader is going to get out of the piece. The first and most important is, whose head am I in? I'm in Ven's. Says it right there in that opening.
Yep. Opening
sentence. The opening valve creaked behind Ven, and she squeezed her shoulder blades. Bam, I'm in Ven's head. The second thing is where am I at? Remember, I can't see anything until you show me. This is not video. And we get that, and we want to do that as quickly as possible. We get that by the end of that second paragraph. The 2-inch fire hose was the primary tool of trade down here in the showers of the Institute. Now, it's big, it's vague, but it's enough. Like, we know there's a wall. We know that we're in a shower area. We know that there's someone behind us with a massive fire hose, hitting us with water. And we know we're in some type of institute. And that is actually enough to ground us for the moment. You know, you don't have to be detailed. We just want to make sure that the reader has that grounding.
Just ground the reader in what's going on in the opening.
We want to know why we're here. Now, in this, the why is we're getting sprayed with a hose. Like, that's why we're here. We don't, again, that's vague. And vagueness is not a bad thing. You know, you can also be specific, and it's not a bad thing. It depends on the scene, depends on what you're doing and everything like that. But we do know why we're here. We're getting sprayed down by someone else. We don't know if it's a punishment. We don't know if it's just a thing to do. Like, we get there in these first 4 paragraphs, but we do know why we're here. And the last is the hardest and the most esoteric. We need a hook. And that could be so many different things. It can be a conflict, it can be whatever, but just something interesting that makes the reader go, ooh, and they want to find out. And that 4th paragraph, you know, this is not a purge, it's a cleansing. A purge is bad, a cleansing is good. And you're like, what? Okay, no, I got to figure out what's going on here.
Yeah.
So in 4 paragraphs, this does a beautiful job of the 4 most important things to do at the beginning of a scene. I know whose head I'm in, I know where I'm at, I know why I'm here, and I have this hook that makes me want to continue reading. Because like I say all the time, there's only 2 reasons why someone reads the next paragraph of your book. One, because it's the next paragraph of your book, and they have to, like, because they're going to read, but they don't have to because they can put the book down. The other is that the last paragraph forces them to read the next paragraph. And when you say that 4th paragraph, this is a cleansing and it's the only thing that's good, that forces me to read the next paragraph. Like, I can't not read the next paragraph now because I would literally...
I want to know what is the ultimate reward. Are we going to get it?
I'm going to die if I can't figure this out now.
Yeah.
And so it pushes me through the story. And that's what we want. We want the story to grab the reader and pull them through it. We don't want a reader to have to push through the story. Yeah. And so that's why every paragraph to me matters.
Yeah. So
now,
there's a couple of things that I might say, you know, like, I'm not crazy about the word that, and you could eliminate it by using hitting, you know, a choir of screeches announced the volley of water needles hitting her naked body, you know, like minor word edit stuff.
Right. So I think it's important to understand. First of all, everyone can be edited. Nothing is perfect. Shakespeare can be edited and improved. There is no such thing as perfect. There's only published. Like, once it's published, you're just done. And warts and all, it goes out to readers, and it's just the way it is for the rest of eternity. But there's many, many different levels. Like I said in your opening question. Sure, there's some little things we could edit. Because I agree, hitting her naked body is a little bit more active than that hit her naked body. There's a couple things like that. But really, the big thing is now we move up a level. Now we start moving up to even more detailed stuff. So we get away from the grammar side of it, and we start actually now being able to critique the story side of it. And this gets very nitpicky, and this is where you get super subjectional.
Yeah.
Sure, you could say, you know, whether you write that hit or hitting is subjective, and that's great. But that's less subjective than something like...
And the word choices are pretty much that, like line edits, because there's no egregious word problems here. It's not filled with weak verbs. It's not filled with ly adverbs. So there are minor word changes you could make that, you know, might improve the piece a little, but it's like tiny little nitpicky improvement.
Right. Which is exactly where you want to be as a writer.
Yeah.
You want to get to the point.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing it. But now, I am no expert on prison showers. I'll just say that up front.
Me either.
But when it comes to physics, I feel like the smaller the hose, the more painful it is. So it feels weird to me that the 3-inch hose is the punishment and the 2-inch hose is not. Again, now we're getting very subjective and all of that, but
No, I can see that, because the thing is your hose size, if your water pressure accommodates, right?
well,
So
if the pressure, I mean, if it's just a valve, then the pressure is going to be the same across the board if you turn it. Now, you could turn it higher, but I'm just assuming that it's just, we've turned it to max.
mm,
If you turn the valve to max and you put a 3-inch hose on it, and then you turn the valve to max with a 2-inch hose, the 2-inch hose is going to come out faster and harder and be more painful.
yeah.
So that actually threw me out the first time too, that I felt it was backwards.
So I
But again,
think
there could be a reason for it.
the author, because the author says like they stumble and fall because they don't have chains, and once they don't have chains, once they've fallen, then they basically start drowning. And the thing is
But that's going
that
to be the same on a 2-inch hose versus a 3-inch hose.
no, because your 3-inch might deliver the water faster because there's a more bigger volume of it hitting you,
No,
like a
it's going to
broader
come.
volume.
The volume of water is going to be the same on both, which is why
Mm,
the 2-inch is going to come out faster as
yeah,
far as pressure, because it's forcing
yeah.
the same volume of water through a smaller orifice, and so therefore it has to go faster to get the same, because the valve is on.
I think the larger one will have more water, but I'm not a physicist, so don't take my word for it.
Yeah, but someone in the actually, we've got two kind of engineers. One's more biomedical, or
Yeah.
bioengineering, and one's more physical engineering. But if the peanut gallery wants to weigh in on that, I think it's the same amount of. I think when you turn
So the peanut gallery is currently saying the larger one has more water. The nozzle size determines force. So the 2-inch hose will come faster but less water, harder but less water.
I don't think that's the way it works.
I
And
don't know.
again, I'm not an expert on this either.
I'm not a physicist by any stretch of the imagination. But anyway, so let us know in the comments what you think. Like
Yeah.
which one would be worse?
Yes. I always forget that there's the comment section.
All right.
So
So
that I'm just saying, it did throw me out the first time we read this, and is still throwing me out in this one. I feel like that
100,
is off. Now, I do like that the punishment is no change, so that they can just push you to the ground and
yeah.
basically waterboard you on the floor and all of that. That sounds like a horrible, horrible, thing, versus the chains still being horrible and painful, but at least you're not going to fall to the ground and get drowned.
Yeah.
So that I agree with 100%,
Mm.
but the size of the hose just threw me out. Just letting the author
Well,
know that.
we've got a comment for the author in the text.
Yes.
All right. Anything else in these opening paragraphs?
No, and again, there's always the odd little thing, like you said, but we really start getting subjective. And the other problem with this is, if I start going through and going, oh, I would add this piece of sensory detail here, or this. I mean,
Yeah.
one of the things that's lacking in here is we don't know how she feels about anything. There's no internal emotion in this. Is she excited? Is she afraid? Her body is reacting to stuff. She's
Yeah.
squeezing her shoulders tight. But is that just because she's preparing for the hit, but she's cool with it? She's calm with it? Is she nervous? Is she afraid? Is she anxious? That's the one big piece of editing that I would give for this. I think it would not go
A
amiss if
little
you
bit,
added one or
yeah,
two
a
lines.
little bit more emotion wouldn't go amiss, but having read further, I think that Ven is also not a very emotional character right at this point in time. Like the emotions have kind of been walloped um out of her by life.
All right. So
Feels like.
that's
Yeah.
let's assume that's true. One of the things that I push to my people is to understand it's still about making sure the reader
Mm.
knows how they should feel. So let's say she is on a drug that makes her feel no internal emotions. I need to make sure the reader knows that up front, so that they understand, and they can, because If the reader's like, wow, she's not feeling emotion, that feels really weird to me, I must have missed something. And now the reader feels like they have failed and they're thinking about, did I miss something? Did I not? What am I, and I don't want them thinking about that because they didn't miss anything. So by saying something like, even, and I'm just going to write on my mouse, this is not well written, but to make the point, she should be feeling afraid, but the drug she was on numbed her to her core. Even something like that, and it's not well written, but you get my point. What it does is it gives the reader permission to know that they didn't miss anything, to know that this character is emotionally numb because of X.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important to keep that in mind. Anytime you're making the reader feel weird, literally doing something that gives them permission to feel that way, so that they're not thinking about this thing that we don't want them thinking about. We want them thinking about, because then once you do that, they're not going to think about that anymore. They're not going to be like, oh, did I miss something or whatever. They're just going to be like, oh yeah, emotionally dead. Let's focus on what's going on and everything like that. So even if that is true and we don't add the emotion, we need to add something that lets the reader know that this is the way it is. I just think it's very important.
Yeah, and even like, let's say she was just suppressing the emotion, like she's sitting on the emotion, have her be like, she pushed down hope at the thought or whatever. Yeah.
Right. Or fear or whatever. Yeah. Again, I think it's very, very important to make sure the reader really understands what they're feeling is correct.
Yeah. So let me just add a note here. Consider. All right. So shall I continue?
Yes. Sorry.
Okay.
And as I said, everything can be improved.
Yep, but always.
So don't feel bad, because this is of everything that's been submitted to us, I think this is the best first 4 paragraphs that we have ever read on this show.
Yeah. The brittle current crept up, making its way toward Ven's head. As it pounded her nape, the sound of tearing cloth rang in her ears. She pushed her head back, resisting, her neck muscles strained and burnt. Full rights and benefits, she whispered. Full rights and benefits. The flow stopped and Ven's head bounced back as resistance suddenly disappeared. Open up, the bathmaster's voice came from behind. Ven moved one step away from the wall and spread her legs apart. There was so much water up her nose she could almost smell it. Heavy droplets fell to the floor from every nook and crevice in her body, ticking and clicking. Okay, I'm going to call a brief pause here. So there's a couple of small things here, like I'm not crazy about the sound of tearing cloth ringing in her ears. It feels a bit filtery to me, and the author hasn't filtered yet, so yeah.
I mean, it's not filtering per se, but I don't know. I'm not saying you're wrong, because that's how it made you feel. Just as a devil's advocate on this side, that's not what I didn't snag on that.
I don't like the sound of thing. Like that to me, I'm always like, it feels extraneous to me.
The sound of?
Yeah. Whenever somebody says the sound of blah, I'm like, yeah, but what does that sound like? Like,
so you would go more specificity.
Yeah.
As it pounded her neck.
Wet tearing sounds behind her signaled the whatever it is. I don't know. I just I'm not crazy about that sound of thing. I don't like smell of either. I'm not completely on anti it. I just try and eliminate it in my writing, because I'm not nuts about it. Personally.
I mean, the problem is that it's a simile. So if you went direct and you wrote something like, as it pounded her neck, the tearing of cloth rang in her ears, that's going to be taken in literal. And so either, if you did want to, I mean, again, the sound of doesn't bother me, so it's fine. It can bother you, it cannot bother you. It's neither of us are right, neither of us are wrong. But if you are going to do that, you'd have to come up with something else and some other way to do it. Neither here nor there. Now, one of the peanut gallery has thrown in something that actually I think works really well. or may work really well. So we have that line, full rights and benefits, she whispered, full rights and benefits, she whispered. That's really a cool line to start showing what her motivation is.
Yeah.
But if there's a spot that might organically be a place that we could put it in, I mean, technically it could be the opening line, but maybe not exactly as written or whatever. But if it was moved up sooner,
yeah,
we might get a little bit of emotional depth from that line that isn't there where it's at. Again, these are all nitpicky.
Yeah, they are.
The first real mistake to me, though, is on line 22, the wishy-washy almost.
Yes.
It just weakens the line. There was so much water up her nose that she could smell it. Like, no one's going to take that. Like, it's just a stronger, more active, more immediate thing. And it doesn't matter if it's not 100% accurate. Remember, we're writing in limited. This is third person limited, which means there are no facts. There's only the way she perceives the world. Then is the narrating character. So if she feels she can smell it, then she can smell it. So it's not, so many people are like, yeah, but she can't actually smell it. But I mean, you can smell water.
Doesn't matter.
But water does smell. And
Yeah.
I would assume that water coming out of a pipe in the bottom of an institution, may have a strong coppery smell
Smells like
or
chemicals.
whatever. Yeah. Could be a chemical, type thing.
Highly unlikely to be pure H2O.
Right. So the wishy-washy words, the almost, the sort ofs, they just really weaken lines, and there's no reason for them to be there. We are reading drama, and we need to be writing drama, and it's so much more dramatic to say it was so much there she could smell it, as opposed to she could, sort of, kind of, almost smell it. I'm
a highlight 2 little echoes that I picked up, probably only because I read it aloud, to be fair.
Yeah.
But for the author, you might want to take a look at like changing these two, because I did pick up the echo of resisting. She pushed her head back, resisting, and then Ven's head bounced back as resistance suddenly disappeared, and the two close together did ping a little bit on my echo radar.
Yeah, and we could use, there's so much for the second one. We could use as the pressure, as the water, as the hose was redirected.
As the pressure probably works best, as the pressure suddenly disappeared on line 90.
Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of words without having to echo, resist. And yes, echoes are echoes, even if they're slightly different variations. So yes, resisting and resistance are not the same word, but they're still an echo.
It's an echo if it sounds the same when read aloud.
Yeah.
And it's not intentional, because sometimes you can echo intentionally, like I've totally done that. But this doesn't read intentional.
No. And again, we haven't gotten how she feels about it.
Yeah. So some more emotion would be good, like here especially, because this is about to get hairy. If you are a viewer who has issues with stories that involve, I don't know, bodily autonomy, maybe, like, fair warning, it gets hairy. For the author, you might want to take a look at like changing these two, because I did pick up the echo of resisting. She pushed her head back, resisting, and then Ven's head bounced back as resistance suddenly disappeared, and the two close together did ping a little bit on my echo radar.
Yeah, and we could use, there's so much for the second one. We could use as the pressure, as the water, as the hose was redirected. Like
as the pressure probably works best, as the pressure suddenly disappeared on line 90.
Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of words without having to echo, resist. And yes, echoes are echoes, even if they're slightly different variations. So yes, resisting and resistance are not the same word, but they're still an echo.
It's an echo if it sounds the same when read aloud.
Yeah.
And it's not intentional, because sometimes you can echo intentionally, like I've totally,
like, okay, what about?
I think that this is a fragment that should be attached to this sentence, actually.
Well, no, I think we're describing, so like, as ever, she was dressed
Ah, yes, I see. Yeah. You could
in
do that.
her, but there's, I mean, yeah, so
But
not that
this
there's not an
wouldn't be
action.
she.
There's no,
The,
there's no
the
subject.
reason why that she is left out is because of the pronoun.
Right. It would
Yeah.
screw with the pronoun.
Because it screws with the pronouns.
Right.
Yeah. This is yeah. Okay, let me read the
And here's the
paragraph and
thing.
then let's talk about it, because this is the first clumsy paragraph in
Okay.
the thing. Okay. So Bathmaster Balan appeared in the corner of her eye, as ever dressed in her white pullover, her head covered by the eternal shower cap. Ven saw Balan nearly every day for the last 6 years, and that woman's hair color was still a mystery. In her right hand, she held the feeble, now unemployed hose. In her left, her second companion, the wooden brush. Okay, so my problem with this paragraph is that it conveys information, but it does so in a fairly clumsy way for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't get the emotion.
Right.
I want Ven's emotional feeling towards this woman. Now, I'm assuming like really horrifying, because, I would be in this situation. But, being naked in front of somebody who's fully clothed and that person's approaching me with a brush it's like a nightmare.
Yeah. With intent on cleaning me.
Yes, it's serial killer territory right there. I
Yeah.
have nightmares that have started worse, that have started easier than this. So I would like Ven's emotion here. Very much, I would like Ven's emotion. But I also want this sentence, as ever dressed in her white pullover, her head covered with the eternal shower cap. I want that to be a stronger sentence, and I want this Ven saw Balan every day for nearly 6 years, and the woman's hair color was still a mystery. I want that feels clunky.
Yeah, very. First of all, that middle sentence, the Ven saw, is a flashback backstory piece. Not that that's a terrible thing, but that's one of the reasons why it feels kind of clunky here. Because we're so in the immediacy, and the paragraph is so in the immediacy, that it kind of drags this paragraph down. And this is one of those where I would go,
see, I would just change that sentence, that clumsy sentence, to be like, in the 6 years, Ven had
oh no, I would,
known Balan.
sorry, I would actually cut the whole thing, because where I was going to go with that is, does the reader need to know right here, right before Ven gets scrubbed down, this piece of information of the 6 years?
Only if you focus on the shower cap as a defense mechanism. If you tie it into the emotion, right? So if you go like, Ven focused on the shower cap, maybe this time she would see a strand of hair peeking out from underneath it. She stared at it with a dedication to remove herself from the scene. You understand what I'm saying? Like, obviously that's very clumsy, but like to bring that kind of emotion of like, staring at anything except the reality.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You could absolutely, but that's going to be its own paragraph, because we're going from, this is about describing Bathmaster Balan and what she looks like, versus now what Ven is doing. So we'd break that on its own paragraph. But again, it's yes, that would be great, because now it has a purpose. It would transition really well into that. But the fact that this just comes out of nowhere, and the fact that her hair is a mystery, but there's nothing
wonder if
attached
the
to it.
author's trying to establish that it's been 6 years. I wonder if that's
That's the two pieces of information that I think they're doing here. They're trying to give that woman's hair color, or lack thereof, to the reader, and they're trying to give the fact that Ven has been at least under Balan for 6 years. And the 6 years, I don't think the reader needs right here.
Yeah.
So either find a more organic way to do it, or just eliminate it and give us that later, and find a better place to give us the fact that she's been here for 6 years. Because this is such a visceral scene that everything that you add to it is gonna weaken that visceralness. And so to me, I'm going to try to stay in this very visceral moment and not let the reader come up for air, because that's what you're doing. You're giving the reader a break with this sentence. And I don't want them to get a break from this. I won't, if I'm writing something like this, it's for the purpose of making the reader uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So many writers today don't understand this. Readers want to be uncomfortable. They don't know that, but like, look at horror movies. No one who isn't scared of horror movies likes horror movies. They think they're stupid. If people are too scared of horror movies, then they won't go see them because, they're too scared of them. But the people who love horror movies are scared when they're watching horror movies. Now, they may not realize that they want to feel that fear. They may not, consciously acknowledge it. But when they get done watching a horror movie, they're like, oh, I love horror movies. I'm such a fan. Oh, look at the trailer of this one. That looks terrifying. We are going to go definitely see that. Like, they might not be aware that they have a desire to feel that uncomfortability, but that's what they want. People who watch heart-wrenching movies want to feel that heartbreak. People who watch, or read or watch romance want to feel that, either the romance or the sex or whatever it is. Today's writers have lost that. I think that's one of the biggest weaknesses of today's storytelling is nobody wants to make anyone uncomfortable. But that's what they want. And so like right here, I love that the reader is making me feel uncomfortable, because that's what I want. I want to be uncomfortable. I want to be like, ah, and keep, because it's going to force me to continue reading. And so when you have a sentence like this that gives the reader a moment to catch their breath, like, no, reader, I'm going to put your head underwater and I'm going to hold you there and you're going to fight me and you're going to, you're going to be scared and you're going to be freaking out, and I'll let you up. I'm not going to kill you. I'll give you some air, but when I'm ready to give you air, not when you're ready. So that's why I think this line needs to be cut. Now, if you do use it for a mental, emotional break, but again, I would do that afterwards, the next paragraph or whatever. But that's how I kind of feel about that.
Yeah.
One other actual mistake in here, and that is, and that woman's hair. That is not correct. Ben saw Balin nearly every day for the last 6 years, and the woman's hair was still a mystery or whatever, but that woman does not ring correct.
Yeah. Because she's not the woman over there, she's the woman over here.
Well, also, I was trying to figure out what the grammatical issue with it is, and there is something grammatically wrong with it. So I don't know if I'm right in saying this, but it's almost like a tense shift. It's almost like it feels to me like we're pulling us into present tense instead of past tense.
Yeah.
And I could be wrong on that. So you guys can make a comment. There is something grammatically wrong with it. It may not be tense, but I just can't pull up what the grammatical issue is, but it's just not right. Or it just could be me and it's not right to my ear, but it doesn't matter. It's something, and the peanut gallery also threw.
Yeah, they threw out that woman, and also that the hose, you could say the limp hose, and shorten the sentence dramatically. So in her right hand, she held the now limp hose.
So yes, the positive that I was going to say on this is I love that line.
You love the feeble line.
I love that line. In her right hand, she held the feeble, now unemployed hose. Like, it really has gravitas to me. Like, it actually brings something extra to the table, and you could shorten it.
Would you use feeble though?
Now you can use held the limp, now unemployed hose. Now could be cut. That's the one word that, she held the feeble, unemployed hose. You don't necessarily need now, because it is now. It's unemployed now. We see that. We don't need to be told that. So that's the only thing I would do. And then feeble is just word choice. Sure, if limp works better for you, or there's 15 different words you could use there. But now we're just talking about very subjective. Which word do you like better?
Yeah.
And so that's going to be an author choice. So the only thing that may strengthen the just a touch would be to cut the word now. But I really like that. Even unemployed, it brings a gravitas to the hose itself. Like this hose has a job. and we're not using it for that right now. It's still there. It's it can still be you. I don't know. There's just something about that line that I really liked.
Yeah.
But again, this is all
Yep.
subjective. That's the thing when you get up to these levels. So, if Maria's writing this and she's like, it's too wordy. I'm just going to say in her right hand, she held the limp hose. Like, if that's what again, these are all very subjective decisions that writers make. And you can't please everybody. And if you try to please everybody, you will end up having your head explode and having no readers because no one will like your writing when you try to please everybody. You'll end up pleasing nobody. So at the end of the day, your name is on the product. At the end of the day, you take as much advice as you can, but you have to make the final decision. So again, I really like that line. It does something for me.
All right. Are you ready?
Yep.
In a place like the Institute, which took cleanliness very, very seriously, Bathmaster Barbara Ballan was a person of unprecedented power. She oversaw the morning and evening showers and personally executed both purges and cleansings. Every patient had to go through cleansing before the medical examination, the first step of a board evaluation, and Ballan was determined to make sure that no patient would ever show up at their examination anything less than spotless. This time it was Ven's turn. Passing the board evaluation meant that the government had found the patient able to lead a harmless, moral life, hence eligible for deinstitutionalization and the full rights and benefits of citizenship, as was inscribed on multiple signs across the Institute and deep in Ven's heart. The ultimate reward. The sharp back and forth strokes of the brush on her back pulled Ven out of her reverie. So I'll stop there and say, I want the reverie to come before you tell me all about Barbara Ballan. Because I want Ven to be thinking about Barbara Ballan as a means of distraction of what is happening to her body.
Yeah, there's a couple grammatical things in through here. So on line 28, which took cleanliness very, very seriously, all of that is shown. There's literally no benefit for that being there.
Yeah.
In a place like the Institution, Bathmaster Barbara Ballan was a person of unprecedented power. She oversaw these things, which it's obvious they take cleanliness very, very serious. So it adds nothing. Same thing with the repetition of 37. No, just the clause in the middle. Yeah, just the which took.
Yeah.
If you cut that out, you lose nothing because we get that they take cleanliness very seriously. Same thing with the ultimate reward on 37. I don't think it needs to be repeated because we just witnessed the ultimate reward, which is deinstitutionalization and full rights and benefits of the citizen. Now, what did she whisper to herself? Just a couple
Full
lines up.
rights and benefits. Full
Right.
rights and benefits.
Right. So if I was going to do a callback there on 37, instead of the ultimate reward, I would change the line on 35. So it would be something like, led a harmless moral life, hence eligible for deinstitutionalization and admission into society or whatever. I would take out full rights and benefits, or just even end citizenship.
Yeah.
And then the callback would be her going, full rights and benefits, she whispered, full rights and benefits.
Yeah.
That would be a cool callback. But you can't have the redundant full rights and benefits in there and then her also say it. That's just too redundant. But it would be a cool back if she's saying it. Sorry, you kept going on. In the paragraph of 31 to 33, if we're going to use an M dash to break that clause out to put more emphasis on it, then it needs to be closed with an M dash, not a comma, or we need to open it with a comma and close it with a comma. So bracket it with the same thing. M dashes, there's no real reality for their use. The way I feel they should be used and the way I use them is they're just a clause. They're just a dependent clause that we're going to throw in there that's extra information. It's just that I want to put a little bit more emphasis on it than the comma is going to do.
I
So
use
like
them in
with this,
place of a semicolon because I hate semicolons.
right, that's another way to do it. But I mean, right, in this example, this could be comma, the first step to board evaluation, comma, or if I really want to go, reader, the first step to board evaluation, very important, then I'm going to M dash it. Because that's really the only thing that it's the only difference between the two is how much emphasis, because commas kind of disappear to the reader. M dashes, they stand out. But you do need to bracket with both.
Yeah.
Not
Not
different.
just one. You can't open with an M dash and close with a comma. That's not grammatically correct.
Right. And then the same thing on 33. This time it was Vin's turn. That is like, thanks, Captain Obvious.
Yeah.
So that's the 3 lines in here that I don't feel add anything to this. And again, this is all subjective.
Yep.
So if the writer's out there listening, I'm just giving you my opinions on things. You can then look at it and go, I agree, I disagree, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, there were 3 lines in there. It's just, I don't feel like it just does anything.
Yeah.
To the writing, and anything that doesn't add to it weakens it.
Yep, pretty much. Especially something like this, which is very visceral. So you want to, you don't want additional words.
Yep.
Okay. Balan firmly believed that if it didn't hurt, it wasn't clean, a motto she often shared with the patients. She rammed the stiff fibers deep into Ven's back, every movement of the brush grabbing and pulling her skin up and down like 1,000 tiny fishing hooks. Over the first few seconds, the friction left its warm mark on the cold skin. But this illusion quickly passed, and all that remained was the pain and the constant chafing sound of the brush.
All right, let's stop there for a second.
Yeah.
So first of all, just to go back to a comment you made, and I'd play with this to see which one felt better, but this may work better before the information about the citizenship and all of that. I'd kind of play with it because it might be cool to get the pain and then get the reward, as opposed to the reward and the pain. That's just something you play with. But that opening sentence is not necessarily, but kind of in a way, a weird POV shift. Balan firmly believed, and it's also clunky and wordy, and it would be so much more direct of, you could either do, if it didn't hurt, it wasn't clean, was a favorite motto of Balan's, or Balan.
It didn't hurt, it wasn't clean, was what she said every time.
Right. Like I said, there's just so many different ways to do it that's more organically than Balan firmly believed, and then.
Or you could literally have her say that.
You could literally have her say it. That was where I was going at the end of this. Then it would be very active, very direct. And then, again, the thing that's missing, we haven't had it this entire time. How does Ven feel? So
I see some of the emotion here, but it's very light. Like you could definitely use some more emotion.
If Balan leans into her ear and goes, if it doesn't hurt, it isn't clean. And then you have Ven react to that.
In case you were wondering, that creeps me out so much.
And this is what, again, I strive to make my reader feel what I'm trying to make them feel. And in this scene, if I'm writing this, I want you to feel uncomfortable and vulnerable and completely not in control of your own autonomy and, everything. I want you to feel the worst because that's what Ven is feeling.
Yeah.
And then the undercurrent is Ven going, yes, I feel this way, but the reward. And that's what keeps her from losing her crap as she's going through this. And that, if you play it right and stronger than this, that's the big weakness of this piece. The reader's going to feel that. The reader's going to be like, oh, I hate this. Oh, but the reward. And that's, I think that's seriously missing here because of the fact that we don't have that internal emotion of how does Vin feel about Balin? How does Vin feel about being naked in the shower and hit with water? How does Vin feel about the reward? How does Vin feel about, you
Yeah.
know, there's so much opportunities. We get the physical, like right here. You know, we get this the every movement of the brush grabbing and pulling her skin up and down like thousands, like 1,000 tiny fishy hooks. That is great.
Yeah. Physically, this piece is fantastic. It does lack a little in the emotional side. So you could definitely strengthen.
We're almost out of time, and I really do want to end this episode with standing up on my soapbox.
Mm.
And I just watched a YouTube video last week on this, and it just infuriated me. There is a group of writers out there who believe that the definition of showing versus telling is you're showing when you write only what a camera can see, and you're telling when you write anything a camera can't see. That is an actual thing that is actually being taught. There's a group of professional writers that I know that believe that, and they write it that way. I don't like any of their stories. Not that they're bad writers, but they never do anything I never feel connected to their stories. And so I always have to force myself to read their stories as opposed to feeling and experiencing their stories. I could not disagree with this statement more if you paid me to. Showing versus telling has nothing to do with what cameras can see or can't see in any way, shape, or form. And that is what it feels like possibly this writer has fallen into the trap of. They have fallen into the trap of, oh, I can't write all this internal stuff because that's telling.
Yes, or I have to make it explicitly she thought, because there was an internal monologue tag further down with a she thought. So here's the thing, guys. So I'm going to be straight up now about this as well, because it annoys me too. The reason why the strength of prose is that you can take the reader into the character, that you can take the reader in omniscient multiple characters, in deep, you take it into one character. It doesn't really matter. The point is you can go into the character, you can give their motivations, you can give their emotions, you can drive that home. So, and I will illustrate it by talking about a specific example. Revenge of the Sith, the movie. Terrible. Yeah, the one where Anakin actually falls. No, that terrible.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with any
Okay.
label of terrible on a Star Wars movie except for The Empire Strikes Back.
So here's the thing, right? There's a guy called Matthew Stover who novelized that thing, changed none of the events. But because he takes the reader inside Anakin's emotions and motivations, and inside Obi-Wan's emotions and motivations, he takes them into the internal life of the character, right? Which Lucas, like, the man has done a lot for movie making, and I will fight anyone who says he hasn't, but the good Lord knows he does not understand how to turn dialogue into proper emotional content. Like, and the novelization of that book, of that movie, is fantastic. If you read the novelization first and then watch the movie, you'd think, man, this is a crappy adaptation.
Well, there's a
Because
reason why
you can go into the head of the character.
There's a reason why you've heard over and over and over again, the movie was okay, but the book was so much better, because prose is the only medium where you get to paint directly on the reader's imagination without any interpretation. Like when you see something visually, your eyes actually interpret it for your brain. You know, when you hear something, smell something, your brain can't see or smell or taste or hear. It has to have an intermediate. When you're reading prose, there's no interpretation. Like the brain just gets, because the eyes are seeing words. They're not seeing the image that's being painted. So the brain is painting that. And there is something deep in that that just can't be matched. And then, as you say, it is the only medium where the reader gets to be completely inside. You can do it in movies, but you have to do it as a crappy voiceover. Yeah. And they almost always fail. Sometimes they can be kind of cool, but but usually voiceovers are awful in movies. So the difference between showing and telling is when you tell, you are telling the reader something. Like Drake felt afraid. That is a tell. If you wrote something like chills raced up, Drake's spine, that's showing me the fears. Both of them are internal, but one is showing me, even if you wrote fear raced up Drake's spine, that is still more showy than Drake felt fear. So it has not jack crap to do with a camera. And if any writer, teacher is telling you, oh, show don't tell is easy, camera, if the word camera's in there, they are wrong. Period. End of discussion. And they can come have a debate with me if they want. I'll debate anyone on that subject. It is the one thing that infuriates me that the writing world has somehow decided to teach.
It drives me bananas. I had a critique guy once who said that to me and said, you can only do that in first person where you go inside the head of the character. I was like, you're wrong. I'm not even going to discuss it. I'm not going to argue about it. I'm just going to tell you you're wrong and we're done.
Now, he's right if he wants you to write in third person omniscient, but we write in third person limited.
Even in third person omniscient, you can give the emotion.
You can the emotion, but you're much more telling in omniscient.
Yeah, sure.
Whereas in limited, you are the reader is inside the character because the character is the narrator. So he is correct in some, but I mean, there's half a dozen versions of third person.
Yeah.
And if you're writing in one that.
So the long and the short of it is, please, if you have heard this piece of advice, that you cannot give the character's internal life except in first person, this is incorrect advice. Prose is built to take the reader inside the character's motivation and emotion.
Third limited specifically.
Even omniscient, but yes, third limited, but that it is built for it.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah.
Do it.
Especially third limited. Third limited is first person using third person pronouns. I mean, so if they say, oh, you can only do it in first, you can go, oh yeah, that's why I'm doing it in this, because third is first using third person pronoun. Like it literally is.
So I of course would argue slightly differently, but we've had that discussion.
Right. And it's just a way of looking at it. It's not being specific. Yeah. But that could be the trap that this author fell into. So this author could be thinking, this is all show and everything they're telling me to do is all telly. And, I'm not doing any of that. I'm sorry, you've been told incorrect information. That is not what telling is.
There's a lot of what we teach is subjective, and we say that, don't always take our advice, all the rest of that. But on this one, I will die on this hill.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. 100%, period. I mean, that's just it. I write, in Hollywood, writing a couple movie scripts for a production studio right now. When you write a script, you cannot write anything a camera can't see, because there's no way for the movie to get it to the audience. Like, I was reading this werewolf script. It was one of the worst things that I've ever read in my life. But there's a scene in there where the werewolf has this little girl in a cage. The little girl's kind of the main character. And in the script, it says, little girl is terrified of werewolf, but also oddly feels connected to him. And I'm like, how do you act that? You're like, oh, I'm so scared. And then little heart, but I like you too, heart. Oh, but I'm so scared. Like, heart, like, what are you saying? There's no way to act that. So, like, no, you cannot write in a movie script anything that can't be shown on screen, because it can't be shown on screen.
Yeah.
That's the only medium. Like, that's it. That's your medium. You are limited to that screen. But that is not the case with prose. The movie screen is the reader's imagination, and it is so powerful. And that's why I'm so happy that I was a prose writer first that moved into script writing, as opposed to and that's why so many script writers are terrible prose writers. And that may be where this came from. It may be that they brought that over and now somehow it's proliferated through the prose world. But
so I just want to kind of conclude and tie a bow onto
yes.
this critique. I think that this was a really strong piece. I think if you can insert some emotion in the places we highlighted, and obviously further on, and keep coming back to the question of how does Vane feel about this, and take us inside the internal life of the character, I think this will be an incredible, serial opening to a story. So, and I would turn the page, which, you know, despite how enormously uncomfortable I felt.
So for a little while, so like that group of authors that I was talking about, you know, I'm friends with all of them, and I have several of their books, and I've tried, you know, I will get into it and I'll get 3, 4, 5 chapters in, and then I find my mind wandering, and I'm just not connected into it. And I know that that's what it is. I know it's because I never feel any of the emotions that the character is feeling. Now, some people, and the people who teach this, they feel this way. They'll say their rebuttal to this, because I'm going to steel man this. No, no, no. I want the reader to put their emotions into it. And that may be a valid argument. It's not how I write. It's not what my fans are looking for. My fans come to me because, you know, like I say, I always describe my story as the roller coaster, and my readers are the attendee. You get to come in, sit down, and strap in. And that's it. Your job's done. Like, when I want you to laugh, you're going to laugh. When I want you to be afraid, you're going to be afraid. When I want you, you know, whatever I want you to feel, I'm going to force you to feel that. And you're going to know that it's the right feeling that you're supposed to be feeling. So, and again, I'm not for everybody. You'll never please everybody. I definitely have gotten the odd email or the person that comes up to me at a convention and goes, "Oh, I read one of your books and you're way too detailed for me. I didn't like it, but I really love your storytelling. So if you could tone that down." And then I'm like, so I tone down that, lose my 350,000 fans, but gain you, or I can just keep, pleasing these people and make a living and not worry about you being a fan. So, I mean, again, it is subjective. You have to go for what you want to, but I am just, it is disturbing to me that anyone would teach show don't tell is what a camera can see, because it ain't got jack to do with a camera.
It's not about the camera.
Because the camera can see my hand shaking and can't see a tremor running in my gut.
Yeah.
But both are shows and have nothing to do with the camera. Exactly. So if the author, you know, if you're listening and this is you and you felt that way, again, you can either buy into our concept and go, okay, let me explore that and see if I have been taught wrong. Or if you just weren't taught that, and because writing internal emotions is the hardest thing for writers to do. All new writers fail to write internal emotion. That is just the way of coming up through the ranks and all of that. So maybe this author hasn't fallen into that trap, and they just are at that level where it's like, okay, now the next, you know, we talked about that last night in the group where somebody was at something. I was like, okay, so you've reached this level. Now let's look at the next level that you need to, you know, you're not done, because they were so happy they finally fixed these issues and they're like, yay. And it's like, oh, yay, good job. Now let's go deeper. Like, here's your next level.
Yeah.
You know, you've reached level 3, but now you got to get to level 4 and then level 5 and then level 6. And
it's an infinite growth.
Yeah.
But I do think that this author's got a very strong base.
Yes.
So, well done.
Yes. 100%.
And I think that is a good note on which to end this episode. We will see you soon for another one.
Bye. You've already tricked me too many times with that, and I say bye like an idiot. If you are ready to take your writing to the next level and work with a group of highly motivated, dedicated writers who are all working to not only improve their writing, but improve your writing, plus you get to work with me on a weekly basis, then I'll encourage you to check out writersroom.us. This is a website that I have created that I really wish I had 30 years ago. It's everything
a writer needs to become a better writer. Not only do we do weekly critique sessions, both from other members as well as me, we have daily writing sessions, I do monthly classes, Q&As, we have activities, I do all sorts of learning exercises, such as I do a quarterly writing prompt contest, and just tons and tons and tons of things. So if you're ready to get serious about your writing and you want to actually finish that novel and have a chance of it being published, then I encourage you to head on over to the writer's room and join me there. And as a special promotion for listeners of Releasing Your Inner Dragon, I'll go one step more. If you would like to get 50% off for 3 months, reach out to me. There's a million ways you can do that. You can do it through starvingwriterstudio.com, drakeu.com, any of my social medias such as LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, X, whatever. Reach out to me, say that you would like to check out the writer's room for 50% off, and I will send you a link that will allow you to do just that. So hopefully you're ready to start getting serious about writing, and I'll see you in the writer's room.
Thank you for tuning in. This is Marie Mullaney, your co-host on this literary adventure. Our goal is to provide you with valuable insights and discussions on writing. If you believe in our mission, please like and subscribe our podcast. Sharing our episodes with your community not only helps us grow, but also contributes to a richer, more diverse conversation about storytelling. We appreciate your support. For a deeper understanding of the topics we've discussed, head over to Just in Time Worlds on YouTube. It is a treasure trove where fantasy meets history and science. Every Tuesday, you'll find new videos that delve into the intricacies of world building, drawing from our rich real-world history. Whether you're a writer, a role player, or just a fantasy enthusiast, Just in Time Worlds offers unique insights that will enrich your perspective. Check it out and join the journey of crafting incredible worlds.